once in a while. I'm noticing.
Shelley, would you do roll call, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, Chairman Tracy Quick. Vice Chair Mary Lowry. Present. Commissioner Justin Acevedo.
Present.
Wow.
Commissioner Art Warren.
Present.
Commissioner Debbie Cox.
Present.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Very good. Okay, so our first item of business, we've got to run through some quick paperwork stuff that we need to do. So we need to approve some minutes, and then we'll get into why everyone's here. So our first one is going to be consideration to approve the March 6, 2024 meeting minutes.
I move to approve the March 6, 2024 meeting minutes.
Second.
I have one question, and I just think it
yes.
accidentally got in there, Shelley, that the meeting was canceled due to lack of quorum on the front page underneath the attending staff. And I think that just got in there.
But we ended up having a quorum.
So you did, so that was just, okay.
Madam Chair, thank you. I will,
Okay, cool, I've got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay? The ayes have it. Okay, now we're going on to approval of, let's just go, this is easier. Consideration to approve April 3rd, 2024 meeting minutes.
Motion to approve as written.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All of those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. Consideration to approve April 17th, 2024 meeting minutes.
Motion to approve as written.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Nay? Motion approved. Lastly, consideration to approve the November 20th, 2024 meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Approved.
thank you.
Okay, now why we are all here. Public hearing and consideration of a request for conditional use permit to allow an outdoor recreational use for canine training and a special purpose wire fence in the R16 Single Family Residential Zoning District pursuant to zoning codes S14-5-4, B3D, and S14-6-5G, located at the property address of 1060 East Thornwood Drive, APN 205-19-015-D, case number UP-25-01. Dana?
Excellent. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, Commissioners. It's a pleasure to be here this evening, and thank you for hearing this item. As you mentioned in the agenda, this is a consideration as well as a public hearing for a use permit request. That said, I will hop right in and just get people oriented. If there's any chance this works. Thought I'd take just the first few minutes here just to kind of give an overview. It's been a little while since we've been together, but give an overview of zoning, the use permit process and everything. Obviously, we've got an audience that might appreciate understanding this process. So that said, what we have up on the screen there is an image of the zoning map for the city. That zoning map is available online and it's interactive. So I encourage everybody, if you're ever curious on what's allowed on what properties and what your zoning district is, that's how you find out. This is not unique to the city of Globe. Every municipality, for the most part, is required to have a level of land use control or zoning codes. Statutes actually dictate it, among other things. So that said, in this particular graphic, we're looking at the yellow area is R16, residential single family, 6,000 square foot lot minimum zoning district. So it's a single family zoning district, and you see the subject property highlighted in red there. Just to give you an idea, that brown just north of it says R2, that's residential, that's a multifamily zoning district. And then the red area, which is following along the highway, is commercial. So you usually want to put your commercial where the access is there, obviously, and not have things like that back in neighborhoods. So anyway, that's the principle of the zoning map. And again, I encourage you all to take a look at some point. And then I thought I'd also just quickly divert and what that means to what those districts mean is they refer back to the zoning ordinance, and that's also available online if anybody's interested. So we have all the zoning districts listed, several, but this is R16 zoning district. So if I have a house in that yellow area, I go in and look at this list of uses, which is very hard for you to obviously see. but go through. And every zoning code, for the most part, identifies permitted uses, not permitted uses, and uses permitted by conditional use permit. And that's why we're here this evening. So, like I said, use regulations, permitted uses include a single family home, modular homes, not accessory buildings, group homes. That's a recent update to our zoning code that this commission reviewed in response to statutory changes on how our group homes and recovery homes could be located. So just giving you a sense of what's allowed in that R16 zoning district. Prohibited uses, all commercial and business uses, except those specifically permitted as home occupations. So if you're to have a business on your R16 zone property, it would have to be a home occupation. There's a definition that explains what that is. So manufacturing is not allowed, obviously, or warehousing, multiple residents, manufactured homes, recreational vehicle parks, keeping storage, so on and so forth. And then you keep on scrolling and you see uses permitted by conditional use permits. Conditional use permits are identified by statute as well as an administrative or a discretionary remedy for cities to use in their zoning codes, a tool that basically says, hey, there's some uses that wouldn't be good in every neighborhood or in every location of neighborhoods. So we need to look at a conditional use permit process to ensure that neighbors are notified, and so for instance, churches and church facilities, that requires a use permit to go in a zoning district. Public buildings, providing cultural, recreational, educational, administrative, and so forth. So that's kind of an office use, right? So they want to make sure that that's a compatible use in a neighborhood. And both of those uses, as well as elementary schools, which is where we want them in our neighborhoods, but they have to be located just like those prior two uses. They say have direct vehicular access to an arterial collector street. So what the code is, the intent of that is saying, okay, these can happen in that district, but we need to know that they're in a location where they're highly accessible because they're dependent on trips per day, in lieu of something buried back in a subdivision or an older community that's going to generate a bunch of traffic where roads weren't designed to handle that. Or it's a use that might not be necessarily compatible with all of that traffic, that activity, the stacking into the roadways for schools and stuff like that. So that's the purpose of a conditional use permit. It provides this opportunity to apply, to have your use, notify your neighbors, and that's also part of the conditional use permit process. We advertise in the newspaper. These are requirements. Advertise in the newspaper, legal ads, mail notices to properties within 300 feet minimum, and then also place signs. Those are all standard requirements for communities that have that use permit process, which is about everyone. So anyway, that's a long story. And as we work down, recreational uses, provided noise generated will be compatible with the neighborhood and access from a budding arterial and collector street. So that's the provision that when Mr. and Mrs. Haas came in to talk about their use as a agility training field, or Jacob's Field of Dreams, for the purpose of canine training, that's the best fit of a category that we could find by a long shot to apply to that particular use. So that's how we arrived here, and we'll move on. Any questions from commission? All right, so that's why we're here. And finally, conditional use permits, I just explained that to you. It's for conditional uses that are that need some potential scrutiny or mitigating factors to ensure that they're going to operate and function in the neighborhood or on the property that they're proposed without creating nuisances. And they're not issued to a person or a firm. They ride with the land. So once it's issued, unless there's an expiration, which is something that's stipulated on this particular item, it would go on indefinitely. So as properties sell and change, new people come in, see they have, or may have bought it for that certain right and have a new concept there that they try and fit within or work within the existing approvals. So it's important to have those. That's why you have that use permit. We've agreed that it operates in a certain way. If they want to operate it differently, then they have to amend that use permit. All right, and there's the site again. And so one thing we saw in the zoning code relative to the recreational uses allowed by conditional use permit in R16 zoning district, identifies that it needs to be accessed from a collector or arterial road. Again, a higher capacity roadway that's easily accessible to many people without disturbing a neighborhood is the principle there. Or using local streets that might not be designed to carry that level of traffic. So I just wanted, we need to be clear on that because we're, staff is a little bit outside of, obviously, the code. I think Planning Commission is accustomed to me discussing these types of avenues. And it's certainly something that we don't want to obviously make a habit of. But in this situation, you see those local streets, and the access to this parcel are on those two connections at the 60 and 70. So I just wanted to be clear for the record that that is why we're looking at this, and I believe based on how we've addressed this proposal with the conditions of approval and our discussions with the applicant, that there's mitigating factors to ensure that there won't be a traffic concern in this neighborhood because of this use. And then there's the blow up site, as you can see, and as you're aware, it's been operating for about 3 years from what we understand, what we've been told. You see the paddock there in green, and then access over on the left side, north left corner there of that site. So part of a conditional use permit requirement in the code is to submit a plan, a site plan, shows how you're going to use the property, and that's what this is. The applicant provided. So you simply see that access that meets our minimum parking requirements. Any uses aside from a single family use or a duplex use is required to show parking and design in accordance with our parking code. Which is a minimum roadway width and minimum parking space dimensions and things like that. And also fire turnaround, which you see there with the Y in the middle of the lot. Anytime there's a use that's beyond 150 feet, which is basically the length of the fire hose, beyond 150 feet from the roadway, fire needs to know how it has requires a way to get out. And they have its nationally recognized standards that we've been dealing with for 30 years or plus, how emergency vehicle can maneuver and exit a property after being served. And there's other requirements too, such as all weather surfacing. DG is proposed 6 inches of DG is proposing some compaction. So we want to make sure in inclement weather, if the fire truck does go down there, they don't get stuck. That's that requirement. So that said, you see the plan, you see those parking spaces they have designed, you see the access way, as well as that fire turnaround, and then some other structures they have shown. You will know that that it's a, I guess, temporary cover or removable cover is within the 10-foot minimum side yard setback there. So it just needs to get moved out. I think it was previously outside of that, and it moved over there maybe to accommodate that fire turnaround, but there's plenty of room. I'm not too concerned on where it goes, as long as it's not in the setback or obstructing the fire lane or fire turnaround. So that's it. And one other thing I'll point out, and you see on the this plan, there's a section of Sanders Drive that is privately owned by the Hosses there, and they've agreed. I think they'd probably like to dedicate that at some point to the city. South of that location of this site is county. As a matter of fact, that southern boundary is the county jurisdiction. So it's over Sanders Drive, south of that boundary. So anyway, point being, we should acquire the roadway at some point.
Danny, and Madam Chair, can we pause just for a moment and ask Shelley if she'll remind the audience that there are seats open, and perhaps we can make some seats along the aisle open for people who have just joined us.
Yes, we do have some seats in the second row.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mary.
Gloria, will you raise your hand? You've got a seat
Yeah,
next to you right there.
but there's 2 over here.
Yeah, good, okay. Thank you, dear.
There's 2 in the 3rd row there, ladies.
Thank you for trying. I appreciate it.
right. So, Commissioner, before I move on, we'll start to wrap up the presentation. I'd be happy to respond to any questions you might have on that side plan or any information in the staff report. Very good. We'll continue. And the other part of this request is, I think you're aware, and you've seen conditional use permits before relative to alternative forms of fencing. Because they're applying for a use permit, they also happen to have a wire type fence that is prohibited in single family zoning districts or non-industrial zoning districts. So the code does have that provision, which is listed and identified in the agenda item language that you read. But they are requesting that link fence that you see here continue to be used to secure the paddock for the dog training area. And there you see it. So those are the two items for conditional use permit. And then there's a view, if you're interested, from East Thornwood, and just probably the most exposed view that you see of that property. So it's recessed, obviously, and depressed and obscured to some extent with landscaping. So public outreach and comment to date. I had one phone call. They were just not interested. They have property around a vacant land that they're interested to develop. So that was a nice response to advertising. But also we received one email from neighboring property owner support, and also one letter prior to the application being received in support as well. I think we made those available to you and part of the record. And obviously this evening we'll receive any additional public input. And then finally, staff is recommending approval of case UP 25-01 to allow the outdoor recreation use for canine training, a special purpose wire type fence with the following conditions, and there's 12 conditions listed there. I'd be happy to review those or just address as you would like to if you have questions on any of those. The Haas's did receive these prior to the staff report being finalized, and I have not heard any feedback. So that's it. Any questions of staff? Nope. All right, very good. So, and I should have started with, usually when we start these meetings, we'll also just kind of identify that obviously staff gives a presentation, question and answer to staff from the Planning and Zoning Commission. And then if you'd like, if the applicant would like to get up and make a statement or presentation on your behalf, you're welcome to. And then after that, and the Planning Commission has had all the questions and comments responded to, we'll open up for a public hearing. And that's when people get to stand up to the microphone and express their support or opposition to the request. All right, so that's it, Chairwoman. If you'd like, the Haas's would like to care to make a statement right now, or yes, go right ahead. Please step to the podium and state your name.
I'm Amanda Haas, and I live at 1010 Sanders Drive. And first of all, I want to say thank you to everybody for showing up and all the support that we've received on Facebook. We built this field because, as most of you know, that our son died trying to level this lot to build a home. And we as a family, when we saw how everybody came together for the baseball tournament and everything, and just the overall support that they showed when Jacob died, I was a 4-H leader for the Canine Club after Carol Paddock invited me in to help her. And we had nowhere to practice. We were practicing, we tried up at the dog park, which was not safe for the kids or the dogs. That was a disaster. And then we tried, Living Waters was kind enough to let us use their parking lot. Well, it's not fenced in, and we were working with children and dogs. That was a recipe for disaster as well. I can't tell you, we had a couple dogs escape to the highway. So we needed someplace safe, and I asked the family, like, we didn't want to sell it. At first, our first thought was we want to sell this because we can't handle the thought of dealing with this loss. But when we thought about it, this is my grandson's, him and his brother's lot. This is their dad's legacy to them. But they don't turn 18. Riker's 11 and Min is going to be 7 in August. And why leave the land fallow and no use come of it? So we decided that we wanted to put the 4-H field on it for the Canine Club. So Tim went and got the grading permit from the city. He talked to Jerry Burns at the time, who was Public Parks. And so Tim got the permits for that. And then we talked to them about building ramadas because we wanted the parents to be comfortable, to be able to sit under to watch the kids. Because it's Arizona and those kids practice in the heat. So, I mean, we practice twice a month on the second and the fourth Friday of every month until summer. And then we practice the second and fourth Thursday until August. And then we have to get ready for the fair. And then we're practicing every week to get everybody ready for fair. So the kids are supposed to have access to the park anytime they want. And there's a combination on the lock and all the parents have it. So the kids can come down anytime they want to practice. So when we talked to Jerry Burns about the ramadas that we wanted to build, he was like, well, if you're gonna have this for the public, you have to get it engineered. And, because they're gonna be permanent structures on cement. That was a lot of money, but he told us if you have something that's not permanent, you can put that on the lot for the parents to sit on it. So the United Fund was kind enough to give the money for the bleachers for the parents to sit on, and then the 4-H club, the University of Arizona donated the money for the covering, for the shade covering. And that's what the parents, it's worked out wonderful for everybody to sit under. So everybody's within the city has known about this since its inception. So I don't understand where it's coming from, that they're acting like they don't know where it came from. Because we were upfront about it. It was in the Copper Country News on the front page in July of 2022. It's been in the Globe Miami Times twice, plus I advertise in there. And we have the field as a backdrop for my dog training business. I do a lot of work with the Humane Society. I do a lot of work with parents with puppies, behavioral dogs, and my biggest thing is the 4-H kids. I want to teach these kids how to have good relationships with their dogs. Because for each kid that I can touch, they can turn around and touch somebody else. Then we have less dogs turned into the Humane Society or abandoned or left out in the yard and neglected. Like it's a chain here, and we just send out ripple effects. Plus the 4-H is the most amazing group of kids I've ever seen. They have to fill out books when we come to practice, what their goals are, how much it costs to own a dog, how much it costs for dog food, how much for vaccinations, spaying, neutering, breeding, what your goals are, everything. As a matter of fact, our next meeting, we're gonna meet at my shop and we're gonna learn how to groom dogs. So at this time, I think we have 12 kids. And we also have to do fundraisers. So we have to teach the kids how to bring money in to pay for collars, leashes. The equipment needs to be replaced. I mean, the Arizona sun beats everything up. So, and as much as Tim and I put into the field, we just need a little bit of help, so that way the 4-H club takes care of themselves. And our community is fantastic about helping all these kids. Like, there is not one thing we've ever wanted from these kids, like for our club. Tim and I have done, he did all the work for grading, and we all, with Chuck's help, put in and welded for the fence, and Justin's help that we needed for things, for the fencing to be put in, the solar lights to be put in. I wanna be politically correct about this, so I have to think about how to phrase it. So we had a list of things that we needed to do to get this permit, to put in for the application of this. And I understand that. And to be honest with you, I don't have a problem getting a permit. I don't have a problem with that at all. What I had a problem with was 3 years after the fact, being told that nobody knew that that field was ever there. That was my problem. And then being told that they were doing us a favor by having us get this permit. If it hadn't been phrased like that, I probably would have been much calmer about it. So, and then all the little things that we had been required. One of the things was the wattage on solar lights. Well, I would like to show you guys, if I can. These are the pictures of the field. And in there is a picture of it at night, and you guys can see it, of what the solar lights look like. That was put in just enough, there's just enough lighting on there So that way the kids can see on the field, but you can't really see outside the field once they're outside of the lighting. We put in the parking spaces that were required. I have video if you need it. Tri-City Fire Department was kind enough to come in and use their largest fire apparatus yesterday to turn around. Not only can they do the Y, but they can also do a complete circle with people parked in the parking spaces. There's absolutely no problems turning the fire apparatus around. The fire hydrant is in front of our house, which is right up above the hill. So all they have to do is run a line down from our house down to the whatever structure might be down there. So that's not even a problem. But I just wanted to bring that to your attention. I think that we have fulfilled everything that was needed. I can't imagine if this was put before someone that didn't have access to people who had CAD, because then we were told that we had to have a plan to scale. God forbid that this would just been anybody else out here that didn't have access to someone who had CAD and was able to use some kind of program to bring it to scale. I mean, it's been asinine. And then the latest love letter that I got from the city this past week was the shade structure might have to be taken down because it was infringing where the fire truck was turning around. As you can see in those pictures, the fire truck ain't going anywhere near that shade structure, nowhere near it. So that's not an issue at all. And having been a firefighter, I know how well a fire apparatus can turn around on that field. I know how important it is to be able to have an ambulance to get down there to take care of somebody. I know priorities like that. I'm not gonna shortchange that at all. So I thank you guys, and I know that none of this is your doing, and I appreciate the fact that you've taken the time to hear this. And I think if the council and the people that said they didn't know that this was there had just come down to the field and maybe checked it out for themselves, then they would have seen that we were pretty much in compliance on 90% of the items. That was it. Like we have busted our butts to make sure that this is everything that you guys need, and I pray that it passes. So, because if it doesn't pass, I have to give up. I'm not gonna be able to do this for the kids. There is nowhere else for them to go and do this. So, and I'm not doing it as a guilt trip for you guys. I'm just explaining to you that this is so out of the way. Our dogs aren't barking. We don't board dogs down there. We don't have dog fights. All of our dogs are required to be 6 foot apart at all times. We have 3 leaders. Charlotte is one of the other leaders, and then of course Carol. So we make sure that if we have an aggressive dog with a kid, one of us is sitting on that kid with that dog the whole time, so we have no mishaps. So everything is always under control. And how much traffic can there be with 12 kids twice a month for an hour? Because I'll tell you, I love these kids, but kids will be kids, and they don't always practice like they should. So it just is what it is, but at least they have the access to the field that they can come and use it anytime they want. It's basically built for them until the boys are old enough. So with that, I want to thank you very much. And thank you, everybody, for coming.
With that, are we ready to open for public comment?
Unless you have any questions of the applicant? All right, excellent. Well, quick.
It's beautiful, I love it.
Oh, thank you.
Okay,
So quickly, just to go over the rules for discussing, obviously the chairwoman runs the meeting. That's who we'd address all our comments and questions to. Hopefully, everybody complete a speaker form if you're speaking. For the record, we have to have your information, your name. All comments will be made from the podium, no comments from the audience, at large, randomly. State the name and address for the record. Address all comments, questions to the chairwoman, like I mentioned, and then all comments must be specific to the agenda item request. So no derogatory or disparaging statements towards any individual or entity. We want to stay to the point of this request that we've covered. So, yeah, just, be as concise to the point as possible. So that's it. Thank you very much, and when you're ready, strike the gavel and open up a public hearing.
And we're gonna open up the public comment. And I'm gonna call Carol up first because she's gotta go at 7. You win.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm here today as not only a 4-H leader here in Gila County. I started the dog program here in Gila County with John and Melissa Muncie's. I got Amanda to come in and help us with that program. We tried, as she said, to train dogs up on the public dog park, and we had kids attacked, we had dogs attacked. Then we went to Living Waters, and the asphalt was too hot. And so from a Gila County perspective, we really appreciate Tim and Amanda Haas and how they've turned tragedy into just an incredible training facility for us. But I'm also here today too as the state representative. I am the state coordinator for the state dog program across Arizona. So I shared with Madam Chairman earlier that I got a 7 o'clock dog meeting that I have to run off to. But I just wanted to speak to a little bit about the positive youth development that we see with the 4-H program and specific to the dog program. We had one young lady, and because of Amanda's coaching and training of this dog and child, this dog used to be chained out by the neck. It was a rescue dog. It was brought into the home. It was trained, and the dog and the child got so close that unbeknownst to the parents at the time, the child started to experience seizures. And the dog, just because of the development of that relationship, because of Amanda Haas and the training field that we have, that dog turned into a seizure detection dog. It would go get the parents, bring those parents back if the child was having a seizure. If it couldn't find the parents, it would lay next to the child and keep the child safe. So this is the kind of positive youth development that we see in our program. And what I'd like to do is at this point, I'd like all the 4-H people that are here that have enjoyed the field, that we've had positive youth development in the field, to please stand so that this council can see you, see the impact. And I'd like to thank the council as well, because we want these young people to see you, to actively participate in our government. This is the core of our democracy, and this is why we've encouraged our young people to come here to participate as part of this process. That 4-H is all about positive youth development, and as Amanda said, we've had this program going for 3 years, and the kind of results we've seen in these young people has been nothing short of amazing. And 4-H has awarded Tim and Amanda Haas Appreciation Awards. We cannot thank them enough for turning their triumph, turning that tragedy into a triumph for the community and supporting these young people. And we really, truly are the envy across the state of Arizona. The dog program was basically decimated after the pandemic, as pretty much everything was, and we've been able to rebuild this back. And the very first state dog event was done here in Gila County, as the example that we've had. So I want to thank the council. We are very much in appreciation to the Haas for the facilities that they've provided us, and we very much would like to continue with the kind of positive youth development that 4-H brings to this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm just gonna take these in the order they're sitting here. Sheila Kaiser. Yeah, you have to come up to the podium, please.
Hi, my name is Sheila Kaiser. Thank you for hearing me. I love 4-H. I'm not a part of it, but I admire all the kids and all the animals and all the training that you do with them. She helped me in another way. I have a lot of health issues, and I had a young puppy, and it was very rambunctious and overbearing for me. And she helped me bond with that dog now, and she's 3 years old, and she's at my side in the same sense it helped that other child with everything with me. And I want to thank you and tell you guys what an amazing program it is for our community, because we don't have nothing good for the kids. And this is an amazing one. So I just want to say thank you, Miss Amanda. All right.
Linda Gross, you're up next, please.
Okay. Linda Gross, 175 East Cedar. I guess I have two things, because a lot of people here are gonna speak tonight. One is, a lot has been said about the 4-H, but I was part of one of the adults with a dog that also went to class with Amanda, and I watched her work with adults and their dogs and turn aggressive dogs into well-behaved dogs, which is a fabulous benefit to the whole community. So what she does in terms of working with kids and adults and dogs make all of us, our entire community, better and safer and more enjoyable. So she is an asset, and this dog training facility is an asset. And it is concerning to me that the city has indicated that they didn't know this existed, because it would take such a minuscule amount of effort, like a phone call or a visit, to discover what this is all about. And it's been in the community guide, where the city has represented, 9 pages of what they do. It's been represented in the community guide every year. It's been represented in the newspapers. It's talked about in the community. So for this to come up now in this way, in a hands-off, well, the requirements are this, and so we want you to do that, without having had a conversation or picked up a phone call or talked to the people about this facility, is a misstep, I think, in our City of Globe communication in terms of what is valuable in this community. And if anybody has looked at that field, they have gone above and beyond in making a quality field. It could be a junky place with dogs that bark and big flashlights or what. I mean, it could have a much more negative impact in this community, and it's not. The amount of benefits that this has created is something we should celebrate and work with and say, hey, and have that early conversation. So it concerns me as a citizen that this has been brought up 3 years after they have been operating as a field in a manner that seems to be hands-off and looks at paperwork and not investment from our people. So I do hope that the commission approves because they have certainly put in the work, and they are a huge benefit to the community.
Next, we've got Tony Deanda Solberg.
Good evening, commissioners, city staff, and supporters. My name is Tony Deanda Solberg. I reside at 1020 East Sanders Drive. So the dog training field is essentially my front yard. As a parent and as a neighbor, I have many concerns about the information that is presented you with the CUP, and I am opposed to line items 3, 4, 7, 9, and 11. I realize you guys can't all see that, so I'm gonna go through my notes and state this. Number one, that our properties keep being referred to as R16, and in 2021, I attempted to open a home-based business to provide swim lessons to our children before the swimming pool opened, and I experienced a very similar situation. I was shot down. It's not a home-based occupation. It's not supported by city code. And at that time, I pointed out that my property is not an R16. We are RL43, rural zoning districts. Additionally, I do believe that a swim business, dog training business, do classify as a licensed home-based business if you go through those proper channels. State statute also agrees with me. Tim and Amanda are both licensed business owners within our community, and their denials are being met with city code. However, the denial and the city code don't necessarily align. I personally have asked for the home-based occupation list so that we can understand what is approved, and that information is not available. So I made that request once in '21, and then I mentioned it again last year when I applied for a second home-based business license that is not directly related. So state statute does protect home-based business owners from things such as making necessary residential property improvements, generating reasonable traffic, parking, or delivery activities that avoids on-street congestion and significant traffic increases in the neighbors. It does not protect from regulations, but they are supposed to be reasonable operating requirements of the business or the residential property. Line item 4 restricts generating traffic. However, in our neighborhood is Destiny Schools. 4 days a week, I go all the way around because I'm not going to attempt to go down Prickly Pear Drive when school is in session because you can't get out. So I don't see how 10 vehicles in my neighborhood is a justifiable or reasonable number at any given time, considering that there is an elementary school next to us. Line item 7, all-weather emergency vehicle servicing, dust control, and line item 9, site lighting, I believe are also unreasonable as the city does not comply with these regulations themselves. I live on Sanders Drive. If the wind blows, there's dirt in my pool. Luckily, my husband takes care of that. However, yesterday I was at the t-ball field and I just happened to look at the ground, and guess what? These requirements are not at the t-ball field. They're not at the soccer field or the dog park. The lighting from the ball fields, until all this process started, routinely shine through our windows all hours of the night in the very oddest of seasons. Conveniently, I've been on the soccer field when those lights have been turned off at the appropriate times, but for whatever reason, they are left on sometimes overnight, and my neighbors will attest to that, and I'm sure others would. Not specifically mentioned with a line item was the fencing on the field, and the fence in question was installed prior to the city code changes, and that should be grandfathered as such. Otherwise, you're sending a very strong message to our community that others are next. I am in full support of the field staying in use within reasonable operating requirements. However, I am concerned and appalled over the fire department statements and other information I have read that has not been presented here in regards to the apparatus being able to turn around. It was evident that an apparatus can be turned around on that property, and I'm going to leave it at that for the sake of small people standing in this room who do not need to relive that moment. But that should be taken into consideration before you send information to families that say that they have to provide access to something that has already been demonstrated. As a previous member of public safety, I am offended for my colleagues because I have been on fire scenes as a colleague to some of those people and as a child in this community who grew up with a fireman for a father. They can get those apparatuses in some of the weirdest places safely to get you, your loved ones, to a better place. And implicating otherwise is an insult to their profession. Regardless of how you feel about Tim and Amanda, they saw a need in our community and they took action during the worst times of their lives. These unreasonable restrictions and interpretations of code, as well as poor timing, because this isn't the first time that something has been brought up during the anniversary of Jacob's passing or an ill-timed comment made regarding our neighborhood and this field. This has the potential to create a dividing impact in our community. And although many of us are trying very hard to control our emotions, we live here, we're invested, and you can't ask us to not be human. So before you agree to these terms and conditions that are before you, or whatever, I really hope that you take into consideration those line items in the information that I've provided you. And I would encourage you to look up the state statute regarding home-based businesses, because I believe this whole situation could have been completely handled differently if they were allowed to have put a second location on their business license as stated on the business license application to begin with. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Jean Campbell.
Say it again.
Jean Campbell.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you everyone for being here. My daughter is a 4-H member. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Jean Campbell. I live out in Copper Hills. My daughter Paige is a 4-H dog handler. This is her 4th year with the program, and I can very much attest to what Amanda was saying about the chain. Anywhere my daughter goes that we have another family member who has a dog that is untrained, she is very willing to train them, and she starts the process. So that has been a very big impact in her life, in our life, and our family's lives. But not only do the kids learn how to train their dogs, but so do the parents, because we have the opportunity to participate, not only in the training, but also when we have the 4-H competition. We as adults get to try our best at running the dogs, which has been a lot of fun. But I do support what Amanda and Tim have done. It has been a gift in a very hard time. It has been a treasure. And I do agree with a lot of what Tony said. With the car use, we generally start out with about 14 kids. And by the time we get to the Gila County Fair, we probably have a strong 5 or 6 who are attending all the time. So we're not creating a lot of traffic. We are usually there for 1 hour and we're in and out. We don't hang around usually in the neighborhood. We're not causing problems in the neighborhood. The dogs are very behaved, and I will attest to, yes, if there is a dog who seems to have some behavioral disorders, Amanda or Charlotte or Carol are very close to that child and that dog to ensure safety for everyone else on the field. The kids who've been doing it for a long time, like my daughter, understand all the parameters and the requirements of being a handler and what they need to do ensure the safety of not only their animal, but the other animals around them. And also some of the nice things is that they've taught them you cannot just approach any dog that is not yours. You have to ask permission, which I think has been a wonderful thing for both of my kids. Because you never know what someone's dog is going to do when you approach them. And that gives the owner the opportunity to say, no, my dog does not work well with children, please do not touch. And so those things, and learning these things as children has helped, I think, keep them safe. It's just a beautiful place to be too. There's a lot of opportunities there. And a lot of good things that are happening there. So I would hope that you guys would most definitely consider this conditional use for them, for us, because we would hate to lose it. I know we would be devastated. And so that we could continue what we've been doing in 4-H. My daughter has decided, because of Amanda and Miss Catherine, that her dog is going to test for the Good Citizen Award and then also to become a dog for Canines for Christ, which will then be able to go with Amanda to all the little things that she does if Paige would like to go, such as grief counseling, and to the nursing homes and the schools and the hospital if it's allowed. So at 11 years old, she would have the opportunity to do that with her dog and to bring that to people who cannot be around animals all the time or even have their own animal. So thank you. Thank you guys very much.
Amanda, you're actually next. Would you like to get up and speak again, or have you said your piece? Okay, very good. Thank you. Charles? I can't read it. I'm sorry. Junior Charles something Junior, sorry. Please state your name, because I can't read it.
Mark Sandoval, 831 First Avenue.
Sandoval, gotcha, thank you.
I've been friends with Tim and Amanda since high school, known them forever. They're fantastic people. They are making the best of a tragedy in their lives. That dog park that was down there in its inception, the fire trucks and everything else got down there because there was a rescue that was in full mode down there that night. Unfortunately, in the loss of Jacob, that lot has been in honor of Jacob's children. I'm an employee of EarthQuest Plumbing, but I would donate every minute of my time towards their cause up there and what they're doing on that lot. What they have done up there on that lot, I've participated in everything. That lot didn't exist, and I myself find it kind of entertaining when you guys go through your zoning and stuff on there, and that lot is included in the city limits and everything else, and not in the county. That lot didn't exist. That lot was a canyon down there before Jacob started cutting that lot for his home, for his family. The memory of Jacob that exists on that lot is what drives Tim and Amanda for everything that they do. Above and beyond the public outreach, the 4-H, the dogs, and everything else that's going on down there, that's a living memory of Jacob. Everybody in this room that knew Jacob, he was a fantastic kid. He cared about this community. He was a firefighter. He'd give his life for another. In the process of them making this a dog park memory, long-term, I believe this dog park is great for the community and stuff. Hopefully the community will outreach to them, let this thing progress and proceed, and grow like it's been growing over this time. But I hope they also recognize that this is Riker and Min's property. It's theirs to do with as they choose when they're of legal age to inherit this property. There's been comments about a septic system that was put in and everything else down there. This is long-term progress on that property for intentions of putting a residence down there for a family. The dog park, the property's so big down there now. It's been growing since it was cut and it was pushed. We've had city people and other people. We have Miami's old football field dumped down that canyon right there, all the grass, because they were looking for someplace to get rid of the dirt. We volunteered, let them come up, let them dump that stuff up here, let them push, let them grow, let them do what they have. They're fantastic people. And to let this thing go on for this amount of time, then to come into question, I understand codes have to be met, I understand all these things, but we're talking about a lot that didn't even exist before they started doing what they were doing down there, before Jacob started pushing towards his home for his family. And I just hope that you guys accept this and let these people proceed with what they're doing up there, because they are a blessing to the community in more ways than just the dogs. Thank you for your time.
Ted Thayer.
Way back 20 years ago almost.
Please state your name for the record.
Oh, I'm Ted Thayer.
Thank you.
I thought you introduced me.
Well, I did, but you're supposed to identify yourself.
Back 20 years or so ago, I was the vice chair of the Democrat Party here. But I've never been politically correct. I got in trouble with the newspaper for calling a spade in print. They didn't like that. So what I'm seeing here is the arrogance that can happen when well-meaning employees of cities, towns, counties, whatever, get carried away with the importance of their job. I'll call a spade here. This is way over the top. Nobody's gotten really in touch with this woman, sat down and talked about what she needs, what the city can do for her and the people that live here. Now, that's all I have to say about that. I want to read to you what I prepared for a 3-minute thing, which I thought everybody only had 3 minutes. I guess that's not true. Somebody over here talked for 15 or 20 minutes without stopping. While I'm not a resident of the city of Globe, I'm closely attached in Wheatfields. I've been an active participant in political, social, and commercial activities since I moved here in '92. On the radio at KQSF, I was known as Terrible Ted. And at Kiko, I did news and commentary for Willard as Ted Thayer. I wish to stand up for my friend for over 30 years, Amanda Haas, in support of her selfless work for this community. We can't help but remember the long fight Amanda and Tim had with the city when they put a manufactured home on their property in East Globe. There may be one of you old enough to remember that. Mind you, it was not a mobile home, but rather a building manufactured elsewhere and transported and set on the property. Amanda was a member of the Globe Fire Department and began her journey into bodybuilding about that same time, and boy, is she a champ. If you bear with me, I want to tell you a true story that sort of equates to what's happening here. After my wife and I moved to Tucson from Aptos, California, she wanted to continue her work as a cosmetologist, but Arizona and California didn't have reciprocity for cosmetology licenses. She had to take a 6-week course so she could qualify to take the state board exam in Phoenix. When she finished, she filled out the application, included the appropriate fee, and mailed it the same day she graduated. A few days later, there was a letter from the Arizona State Board of Cosmetology informing her that the application cutoff date was 2 days before she completed her training, so she didn't qualify, and they were returning her application and fee. Next testing, they wrote, would be in 3 months. Well, that hit her like a ton of bricks because she was actually more qualified than her instructor. I was livid, so I pulled old Terrible Ted out of nowhere and called the commission offices in Phoenix. Maybe God was looking out for us at that moment, I don't know. But I got to speak with the chairwoman of the board. We had a nice conversation about my wife's situation, and then I asked this question. Isn't it true that rules and regulations made by the state board are policy rather than state law? She said, yes, that's true. As the chairwoman of the board, isn't it your function to oversee the application of the rules and regulations? Again, she said, yes. That said, then isn't it true that there are always exceptions to the rules and policies? She replied, yes, and I see where you're going with this, Mr. Thayer. Please have your wife return the application and check to my attention, and I'll make sure she's included in the upcoming testing and is notified what time she'll need to be there. Claudette passed the test with flying colors and had work the very next day. Funny thing, the chairwoman looked her up during the testing and told her she really didn't have to go through all that rigmarole, that Arizona had reciprocity with Tennessee. Tennessee had reciprocity with California. All she ever had to do was obtain the Tennessee license and trade it in for an Arizona license. Somehow, I think that exception to the rules and policies in this instance might be in order. Ms. Chairwoman, I'm sorry, in the letter it says Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry. Forgive me, that's not politically correct. Board members, please see what you can do for this good woman. That's because I know you always want to do the right thing for this community. I'd like to suggest that the board sit down, make some time to sit down, maybe over coffee or whatever, talk with her and find out what she'd really like to have aside and around all the rest of this malarkey, because this shouldn't be happening. Thank you very much.
My name is Darren Lowry. I live at 507 East Apache Street. And I will definitely keep this short. Where's Amanda? I can't hear half of y'all, and I can't see half of y'all either. So my concern is we live in America, okay? Whatever that means to most people, mom, apple pie, rural, small towns, it's dogs and it's kids. And the dogs, I was working with and for the Humane Society for 3 years, so I've seen firsthand that we've got issues here in town with dogs and cats. And if you hear anything on the street at all, you're gonna hear stories about dogs running loose, cats living under the theater, the whole shot. So definitely something not only needs to be done, things are being done, and we need to support those efforts. Kids, unfortunately, I never had children, but I'm an expert on raising them, right? Because that's the way it works. They are being hit with so much negativity and division, and we can talk about suicide rates and bullying and social media and not leaving the house and never leaving the house, moving into the basement. Anything, my feeling, anything that we can do to support the kids and support the dogs, babies, dogs, anything that we can do. And here we've got this beautiful tailor-made property with people who are committed to rising up the children and rising up the animals and helping to make this a better place to live, to making this be a community that I'm proud to call home after 20 years. You know, I was in the Valley for 5 years. I was from Chicago originally, but that's for another time. And the Valley was nice, but, you know, they like clip every single blade of grass, you know, and they had things called sidewalks, which I don't have sidewalks now, and that's fine with me. Because the bottom line is I live in a community of people who care about each other and for the most part care about their animals, that we can coexist. And so when I look out of my house, my old house with no sidewalk, across the street, on the corner, the family there has a trailer that's been sitting out there for 3 years. And it's not a deluxe mobile home, it's not a Winnebago, I mean, this is a piece of garbage. But you know what? I don't care. I can still see Sleeping Beauty. I can still see the trees. So I guess the reason why I brought that up was because when I focus on what's important, you know, these are the kids that are going to be leading. These are the kids that are going to be moving on. These are the kids that are committed and have a committed base of adults who are helping them, assisting them, and showing them the right way to go. With so much divisiveness and so much negativity in the world today, anything that will promote goodness, I'm for. And so I stand behind you. I'm glad. In fact, one other thing, actually, in the anecdote, you will understand, and somebody else touched on it, was a Facebook thing, and I can't remember what the post was, but it was about this, and I said, oh, for God's sake. I said, I live across from the ball fields, you know, and I'm doing my dishes, and this is why I can't see anything anymore. I'm blinded by those lights. I mean, they are like some pretty awesome lights. But I don't care, and I said that in there. I don't care, because they're not running crazy, and they're not putting needles in their arms, or huffing glue, or doing whatever, you know, kids do. You know, they're playing ball. They are playing ball. So let's do what we can to support anything that is positive, and definitely Amanda and Tim. Thank you very much.
Cheryl Haynes.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Haynes, and my address is 952 South Jesse Hayes Road. I am the board president of High Desert Humane Society, and I wrote a letter, which I'd like to read first, and then I'd like to share a little anecdote also. I wrote, I do not understand why there is such conflict concerning Amanda Haas's property, Jacobs Field, As a dog owner myself, I have attended many classes there with my dogs. The field is such a safe place to have dog activity as well as 4-H club meetings, and it is kept up beautifully. But here's the thing you might not be aware of about Amanda and her devotion to community. She is an avid supporter of High Desert Humane Society, and she provides dog training to any of our dogs at very little cost, and oftentimes just gives freely of her time to help us ensure that our dogs are adoptable and good canine citizens before we find them forever homes. Her expertise in recognizing bad behavior or aggressive tendencies have proven invaluable to us. She truly has made our dogs more attractive to prospective owners than they would have been without her intervention. She actively seeks out good homes for our shelter dogs. She also offers to the new owners after adoption ongoing dog obedience classes to any dog she has trained for us, free of cost. That is almost unheard of anywhere else. I would hate to think of our town without Amanda and Tim in our community. Globe is a better place with this family, and please allow their beautiful service to our area to continue at Jacobsfield, where so much good stuff for Globe happens. And I wrote that, and I don't want to take too much time because I know it's getting late, but we've had several dogs that we were worried were aggressive or just would not be good in homes. And one dog in particular really stands out, and she wasn't that long ago, it's Chica. And we asked Amanda to take a look at Chica because Chica had puppies last June, and she was a pit bull mix kind of dog. One of those typical kind, and she was real friendly. But after the puppies were weaned and gone and grown up, she became more particular and territorial towards some of the other people that would come into our office. She would, Will Bowen and myself, she was just all over us, full of love and stuff. But we were worried that she was reacting to some other people. So what Amanda does, and when I say that she provides training, she has not only helped train our staff, but she actually takes our dogs and keeps them for a few weeks. She takes them out in the field, she takes them to stores, she takes them everywhere. She lives with this dog to know what it's like. And boy, Chica, just turned, she could see that right away that Chica was not aggressive, but she was gonna be particular about what kind of people she wanted to be around. And so Chica has come back to us, and she is, we hope she finds a forever home sometime, but in the meanwhile, she has turned into the dog when we get a litter of puppies, that she is the dog mama. Because we get litters of puppies without mama, usually. And the difference she makes in those dogs and how they are raised is incredible. Most recently, just like 3 weeks ago, we were dropped off a litter of pups, no history on them. They were probably about 4 weeks old. And they weren't doing well. They were starving, and they were listless. We were worried that somehow we'd gotten, a disease, a litter of pups with diseases. But she walked in there, Miss Chica did, and immediately the puppies came alive, and they've blossomed. And it has surprised us all. And we're so glad that Chica was given a second chance to prove how valuable she could be. So I thank you, Madam Commissioner. I thank the whole commissioner people for letting me talk, and I hope you don't do anything to change what's going on down at Jacobsfield.
Tina Perlman.
Hello, everybody. My name is Tina Perlman, and I'm a lucky neighbor of Tim and Amanda Haas. I am right next door neighbor last 20 years. And when I first saw them starting building this dog training place, I was excited because we had one dog then, and then we had second dog, And I used to have to go dog training all the way to Phoenix, and that didn't go very well because it's a long ways. So I had seriously 5 or 6 different training things, like first puppy training, and then puppy star, and then good citizen dog, and agility training, and trick dog training, and it's been wonderful. And I just want to let you know that there's no issue of the traffic. We are right there, and I never even hear when there's cars coming there. I wouldn't even know they're training there unless I look down in the canyon, because the location is the way that you can't even hear anything. And the lights, I don't even see the lights to our house. So just to let you know that I don't think there's any issue of the lights or the traffic. And I'm just very thankful that they have it, and hope that it all goes to best for them. Okay, thank you.
Okay, that was my final request to speak. Does anyone else have something they'd like to add?
Madam Chair, I do have a text to read
Okay,
for the record.
please.
I have a text from Sarah Way. My name is Sarah Way, 604 West Sullivan Street. I'm begging for the City of global support of Amanda Haas's field. This region is in dire need of positive outlets for both youth and the needs of animals. We do not have a capacity for grant writing addressing these needs, and the few citizens with the capacity for filling these needs must be supported by our municipalities. Please hear our call.
So do we have any questions for anybody? Do we want to close, or do we want to talk? Do we have the opportunity to ask any questions or?
Absolutely, Chairwoman, it's your meeting. Feel free to ask any clarification questions you have.
Does anybody have any questions for any of the speakers? All right, and then there's no one else that has anything that they want to say? Okay, then we're going to close the public part of this right now. Now, do we have any questions for Dana?
Let's see. I got notes.
I saw him writing in red pen.
Sorry, just checking to see what we got answered already. First of all, thank you everybody for coming up today to show support. It's amazing, beautiful, love to see it. It's exactly what we want in our community. So, yeah, big round of applause. So Dana, I think I just got a couple questions for you as our keeper of the city code. Let's start all the way at the beginning. So, the shade cover element that we need to move back because of setbacks on that, is it like a big distance we gotta move it? Is it like 5 feet? Are we talking big distance? Just out of curiosity, if you know that off the top of your head.
Yeah, you're probably around 6 feet.
Okay, so super close. So I guess I might have a question for.
Would you like to see a video of the fire truck turning around and how it's nowhere near the shade cover?
So I'm actually not as worried about the fire truck being close to it. One of the things that we get charged with, unfortunately, as commissioners on the planning and zoning, is trying to meet the planning and zoning that has been set forward in front of us. So we're just interpreters of it. We don't get to make just choices and everything at all times. We have to go through the code, understand it, and make sure every time a property does come up and it changes, that it does attempt to meet it, or can we meet within that within a certain range within that conditional use permit. And I think this is a wonderful site, so I would rather not change anything today, but one of the things that we're tasked with, I think is really challenging, and it's probably all of our least favorite parts, is sometimes we have to come in and say like, hey, you know what, where do we need to just make sure we're meeting it? And one of the things that excited me about it is y'all said it was movable, so I am kind of curious, at what level of movable is that shade structure?
Well, it's not permanently fixed,
Yeah.
so it's not a problem. But
Okay.
the only thing is that where it's
Amanda, can you do us a favor, please?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Because they, YouTube, they can't hear
Yeah,
you.
the YouTube it, so, yeah. Thank you.
So where the shade structure is, if you look on the pictures, it's probably 30 feet from where the fire engine even backs up. Like on the paperwork, for some reason, it looks like it's closer, but it doesn't come anywhere near it all because the shade structure, the fire engine doesn't back anywhere up, like even close to the shed. So it's nowhere near the shade structure. It's probably 20 to 30 feet away from the shed structure.
Yep.
So it doesn't, the diagram is,
It's probably a little off, which happens a
Yeah.
lot on our very hilly properties in Globe. I'm sure everybody recognizes, like you talked about.
Right.
Trying to put something into a scale when you got hillsides that do a lot of this and move around a lot. It's not an easy thing to do. So I'm actually not as concerned at the moment about the fire truck turnaround diagram. It's mostly about setback lines.
Okay.
I think that's all it comes down to. With it being a movable structure, I'm not as worried, but it more so just comes down to our goal as a commissioner, what we're set forward with, not necessarily our goal, is to just try to meet every condition we can before we agree to a conditional use permit. And so I just want to, if that would be an easy one to hopefully maybe do, is that if we can move it away from that 10-foot setback line on the property.
absolutely.
Okay, easy one.
Because it's
So
not permanently affixed, so.
I just wanted to go down kind of the list of things. I drove past it
You
today
saw it
again
too?
and last week too, and I was just,
Okay.
I think it looks wonderful. It would be hard for anybody to tell that it is within 10 feet of the setback unless somebody's really looking for it. And so again, we are just tasked with trying to follow city code as much as possible.
Okay.
And I think having a recreational property in the space is a wonderful thing to do. So I'm just kind of going down the list of things that I think it was Tony brought up earlier. So I wanted to just kind of run down a couple of those. In the same conversation of setback lines, I think we just have a porta potty that's marked on there. It would fall under the same things. If it's a semi, I know it's portable, but if it's a semi-permanent fixture, if it is just potential to have that setback at least 10 feet from the property line. Again, I think that goes along with the conditional use permit of the space. Dana, do we have anything within our outlines to allow extended use of a porta-john within that space? 'Cause I
We
know it
do not, good
Doesn't meet
point.
city code, yeah,
Thank you, Chairman, we'll make that note and make sure.
okay.
Just need to make sure we're out of the setback.
And so I just want to make sure this doesn't come back in the future on you. If somebody says, hey, that porta john's been there for like 2 years now, and we only allow, I think it's like a couple months. So I'd rather just put it in here now that you can have it there.
Okay.
That way we're not worried about it later. Let's see, so number 7. That is our maintain all-weather emergency vehicle access, 6-inch base, 3/8 minus decomposed granite. That is just following our city code for like accessible driving surfaces, I think. Is that what it is?
It's at the discretion of the city engineer and obviously fire marshal, and they both accepted that.
Okay. Yeah, essentially what that is basically, correct me if I'm speaking out of turn on this one, but I think it's like our alleyway kind of standard. Is that what that is kind of at the end of the day? So I think that's how it starts.
Fire
essentially.
or
Yeah, for
emergency
fire
apparatus,
yeah,
no,
access.
it's, fire code.
Okay, fire code.
And,
So we had this go.
and it's our parking.
Parking,
paving
okay.
Code, yeah.
And I'm guessing that's not something we have on site today. It's probably 6 inches of base with 3/8 minus decomposed granite. Probably not.
Is it existing?
Yeah, it's
Oh, we do?
existing.
Okay.
It's already on there.
Perfect. I want to make sure we weren't adding new stuff. That's why I wanted to ask about it.
Nope, it's already been there for 3 years.
Love it. Perfect. That makes me so much happier. Site lighting, easy peasy. And then I think the very last thing I have on my list here, sorry, I wrote a lot of notes. So I like to make sure I'm very thorough with this as much as possible. Completely understand the concern with the fire truck apparatus. Unfortunately, it's something everybody has to follow kind of everywhere on commercial properties. But that being said, I'm almost 100% sure if we took a drone up there and we probably got exact measurement or a little bit closer, tie downs and exact where everything's sitting, we're probably so close, we're like inches away, especially if that shade structure moves a little bit. I'm not as concerned. I'm guessing this distance for turnaround is based on the potential for a new ladder truck, larger ladder truck that we were in discussion about last year.
As you know, the
Yeah.
fire codes are standard.
Yeah.
Regardless of the apparatus. But yes.
Yeah. And I think that's where that's coming from, is because there is potential for having a new, much larger fire truck as part of the things we might have here.
It's still Globe. The Tri-City responds to that property?
So technically anybody can respond to
Tri-Cities
it?
does not have an engine that's that as big as the ladder truck that the city of Globe is looking to buy.
Correct. Again, so same thing that Dana brought up there. This is it's a national fire code, so essentially it's just because any firefighting unit anywhere across a general given area typically has a responsibility to also respond to that site if called to.
Right.
They can respond to it.
And I actually measured it off myself.
Mm-hmm.
I actually measured it off from the time that you come down the road to make sure that you can do a full circle, not even
Which
the
I love that so
Y.
much better because I hate the Ys.
So you can do a full circle
Yeah.
within the parameters that we were given. So I believe it's 90 feet and you can turn a full circle in the 90 feet.
Amazing.
So it's already been measured out. So that we were given like, I think 5 options, and it does both the 90 or the full circle and then this Y thing. You can do either one on that lot.
Love to hear it. Again, just wanted to go through like just dot the I's, cross the T's. I think this is a really great application. I don't know if we've ever had one quite so thoroughly put together, which is kind of nice. It's been a little while. And just to hear as much support as we did today, I'm again just trying to go through and dot the I's, cross the T's, but it's going to come down to some support on the side over here. So I'm going to pass it back to our commissioner.
Anyone else? Art?
Treasurer.
Chair. I have, first of all, general comment. I think the applicants and their affiliated residents, friends, and family have done a great job here at informing us of what the issues are and what's been done to ameliorate objections or possible objections. So I do appreciate everything that's been done here, and I repeat some of what's been said about what children have to do in the city of Globe, and this is a great outlet for kids and learning, and dealing with animals is not that much different to dealing with humans, so they learn a lot during these transactions. I do have one question, maybe Dana, on item number 4, 10 vehicle trips per day. I assume that means one way, or is that round trip?
Right, one vehicle.
Round trip.
Right, correct.
Okay, so kind of 20 activities coming and going, if that's a way to say it. Because I do know there is concern when communities get a lot of traffic through them, and that's sometimes an objection. But so that answers that question for me. That's all I have. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Couple of comments. You've done a very good job on the presentation with this, and I appreciate what it is that you're doing, and I'm sorry you had to go through some of the technical difficulty that you did. I think this is an excellent opportunity for the community, and especially since it's already been operating for so long. Is there provisions that can be made, Dana, in case this grows into a larger program to allow more vehicles? I mean, I'm on Skyline. I have 114 cars a day that go down my street. And so I think that if this is something that's already taking off at this with the betterment for the community, that there's a possibility that there might generate, not talking about like, hundreds of cars like what come down my street, but being able to allow her to not have to come back here again to address that as it grows.
Madam Chair, I would, given the specific language of that code, to say it can be allowed if it's accessed from a collector or arterial road, I would suggest Planning Commission in the future discuss how that code might be changed and options for that prior to increasing.
Put that on one of our agendas?
Something, yes.
Thank you. That's all I have.
I do have a few questions. First of all, I have never met another Lowry in this town, so it's good to meet you, sir. Yes. I was really surprised. I was like, I didn't sign up to speak. I have a couple of questions. So I want to take a look at some of these conditions. So I want to look at number 5 first. This is in no order. I apologize. I'm going to jump around. It says here, any further or future grading on the site should be, you know, yada, yada, yada. What I heard the applicant say is that the original grading was done via permit. Is that, so before I ask the next question, was there a permit in place for the original grading?
Madam Chair, Commissioner, we understand that there is, in speaking with Jerry Barnes, there was a permit issued. We don't have any record of it, and we requested it from the Haas's, and they haven't provided a record, but the gradings occurred, and that's one of the, we do notice there probably was grading within the last year and a half, 2 years as well. So we want to make sure that we get proper permits.
Okay, would you like to
in
make
the
a comment?
future.
And I appreciate that, Dan. It sounds like he would like to also, yeah.
Yeah, would you like to make a comment, Ms. Ross?
And you just have to go up there because it's on YouTube, sir. Thank you.
My name is Tim Haas, 1010 Sanders Drive. When we purchased that lot, I sat down with Public Works. I sat down with the inspector at the time. I sat down pretty much with the city and went over things that I wanted to do, that we wanted to do. The grading permit that is brought up was never, to my understanding, ever issued. Because when I sat down with Jerry and went over detail of what I needed, he explained to me I needed this silk fencing down at the bottom to catch the sediment. And we went step by step on every development of this field. I consulted someone in the city, unofficially, but I consulted. Why? Because I didn't want to break the laws, didn't want to break the codes. What you're asking, or what is required here on this, I'm not agreeable to. Personally, I think it's BS. But again, I'm a contractor. I'm a person that follows the law. And as a contractor, I follow the codes. And so I'm adhering to what you're asking. But I guess under protest, because I don't agree. As it's been said, 3 years we've been there. And now this comes up, come on. I got different answers. But one of them was because the septic's going in and because I'm on the City of Globe parcel. Again, I'm a contractor, I'm in wastewater, and there is no city sewer. And the septic went in under approval with ADEQ, which is Gila County represents, but it was put in for the purpose of a future home. And I'm not made of bucks, so we do this by steps and phases. Anyway, to answer the question on the permit, I paid a $50 fee at that time, and I can show you the canceled check for that. It's in the file. The actual permit, I don't think was ever processed for it, and that's being straight up. Now, you're not gonna find anything because it's not in my file. But I didn't go beat around, I didn't try and cut corners, I didn't do anything down there on the shy. You know, it's basically everything I did, I consulted with someone to make sure. The canopy, removable. The shed, portable. You can pick it up and I can move it wherever. Anyway, that's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, good. And just as a, for anyone who's listening and those in the audience, when we ask questions, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going for something or not. We're trying to make sure that we understand exactly what's being put in. For example, we may be asking ourselves whether or not one of these conditions is necessary or not, and that may be why we're starting to ask those questions. Okay, I have more. Is that okay? There was a statement made about the condition number 4, about the no more than 10 vehicle trips per day. I echo Debbie's comments that I live in a little area that has just 10 houses on it. It's a little dead end, and I get 140 a day as well. So I don't know that that's quite feasible. I struggle with that as well. And I did look up that Destiny School is nearby. So could I ask you, I think you're the one that, oh, she's holding a baby now. Baby, don't wake the baby. For anybody who could answer this, when you drive to Destiny School to pick up your kid, are you driving along that Thornwood Drive? Like, it sounds like there would be people that would drive on Thornwood or on that one that starts with an S. Sanders.
So if you're up at the top of the road where the red and the yellow meet, that baseball field or the field that you're looking at adjacent, that is Destiny Schools. So what happens is they have a designated pickup area, and then they also have a secondary road that goes to the office. So they drop off on one side and then pick up on the other, or pick up on both sides. I'm not too sure. Okay. But they come up Prickly Pear to Agave and then cut across. So that way you can drop down to Wallaman, you can drop down to Skyline, and you can avoid going back into Prickly Pear. Okay. So there's multiple buses throughout the day with Globe and Destiny Schools, as well as the parents dropping off.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm sorry I woke the baby.
No.
Okay. All right. I do have another question about condition number 3, the commercial and business use. Now, this is a nonprofit, right? So Jacobs, could say the name for me again? I want to get it right.
Jacobs Canine Field of Dreams.
Yes, okay. So the Field of Dreams is a nonprofit, meaning that sometimes you might charge for training services, at other times you're not charging for training services. Is that right?
Correct.
Yes, okay. So I struggle with adding in condition 3 because a nonprofit is technically a business. With that said, I don't necessarily, and this is a question more for my fellow commissioners, I don't necessarily want to set a precedent where we're starting to say that businesses can creep into residential areas. So I'm not sure how to handle that, right?
Well, I think that has to be on a case-by-case basis pretty much anyway, because anything like that is gonna require a conditional use permit.
Okay.
So the thought process that I had while I was reviewing this before was that part of our responsibilities are to go over the codes that we're enforcing, to see if they're logical, to see if they need to be enhanced or diminished or whatever the case may be. This is the most people I've seen in this chamber in all the years I've lived in Globe. So, you know, and starting the communication process with the city of Globe through planning and zoning. So, I mean, there are things that are gonna have to be reviewed. We've already talked to Dana about that multiple times, so I don't think that one's such a big one, Mary.
But shouldn't we then, should it not, it shouldn't be part of this, right? Like,
I believe that,
okay,
yes.
good. Thank you, that's how I felt too, okay.
Would we modify that one just out of curiosity to something around the statement of, because these exist in other parts of the world, not far from here, the concept of private park space, similar concept to HOA park, things like that. So essentially, this is a park space, right? It is what we'd consider quasi-public, I think is the way city code has things like that written. It's just like, Hill Street School, this grand opening, right? They have a plaza space out front. That's a quasi-public space. That's a park space, but it's not, it's public, but it's not public. It's this weird gray area. Would this be something this is setting a new precedent. Would we consider setting a new precedence of the concept of a private park being an acceptable conditional use permit? Because private parks can therefore be leased out, utilized by businesses while also controlling what that might be at the same time. I don't know, it might open a whole nother can of worms. I think it's more of a question for Dana. That's a hard one, I'm sorry.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Acevedo, so obviously the code is, I think, pretty clear that commercial and business, it states specifically that commercial and business activities are prohibited in the zoning district. So I think to make an exception through a use permit is a very slippery slope. We've had, in recent years, commercial businesses operating in a residential area, and it didn't go over well. And we've had other similar situations. So I would suggest, like the other item regarding trips per day, if you're looking at violating your own code, I would definitely suggest you don't do that tonight. And you will have a discussion, and we look at and do the research of what is an appropriate commercial business outside of home occupation, because that's allowed. What is an appropriate commercial activity in a residential neighborhood? Well, that's a much broader issue. Like I said, once you allow it, how are you then going to disallow somebody requesting a commercial use?
So 4-H is under the umbrella of University of Arizona. So we do educational. I don't sell anything. I don't manufacture anything. Money doesn't exchange hands on the field. None of that. All we do is educate people. That's all the three of us do. I myself, even with people that come in and I work with them, we're about education. I'm not really like a business. And we carry insurance. The U of A carries insurance for those purposes. I carry insurance for those purposes because, of course, we work with dogs and they're unpredictable. But it's all about education. So isn't that different from a business or a commercial? Wouldn't that be considered different?
So consider, most of us are not worried about what y'all are doing. We all think it's beautiful. What we're worried about is the precedent that we're gonna set that somebody else can come in behind and use that would hurt the community in the future. And it has nothing to do with what you're, and I know that's kind of like, well, of course it has to do with us. That's why we're all here tonight, is for this program. But that's how a lot of us are thinking, is trying to think about that future of, are we creating a foothold for somebody else to abuse the community through this in the future? And that's why we're trying to be careful right now about making sure that we're still supporting what the community wants, because that's our job. We're community members. You know, we're representing the community in this decision, if you will, to a degree. And so we're trying to represent that, but we're also trying to make sure nobody can get a foothold in a negative way in the future. That's why we're being a little bit persnickety, if you will. Does that make sense?
It sort of does, but I just want to point out that we are for educational purposes.
Yes, you are, but somebody else could come along and say, well, a nonprofit, it's about this word business. And that's why your education, nobody argues that. It's the next guy that comes along 5 years from now and uses this as a precedent to do something that would hurt the community. And I'm not trying to, I work in HR, so I apologize for the legal speak in advance, okay? It's about looking at that legal precedent, that's all.
I understand legal precedents, but I also understand that I don't think that this would set precedents for someone to come into a residential neighborhood and be able to start up a business. Even a nonprofit wouldn't be able to start up like as a business, because I don't see how a nonprofit is a business.
It's defined as a
explain that to
business,
me?
but now there are other provisions where, like the home occupancy, right? Like that allows for business. And that was another, and I don't mean to shift, but I think the reason that home occupancy didn't apply here, the home-based occupation, is because there's not a technical home on the property. How are we defining home then? Because does it have to be 4 walls? Like, it's a private property in a residential area.
That's defined in our zoning code, Madam Chair, dwelling. Yep, and so for the purposes of this CUP, obviously it's a recreational use, and that's what's being presented to you.
So on ARS 11-820, it defines like a home-based business. And in accordance with state law, home-based businesses are permitted as a principal use in rural and residential zoning communities.
Correct, and that was why I really appreciate the research that you did, thank you. I appreciate the research others did, and I think, as I just asked Dana, why we couldn't use that, it's because there's not a dwelling on the property yet. We need you to grow up and put a dwelling there very soon, sir. And I don't mean to be facetious, please don't take it as disrespectful at all, we're really trying to find a solution here.
So would a dwelling, I'm Caitlin Haas Burke, 1651 North Wheatfields Road. Would a dwelling be considered, if I put a shed and a bed and a toilet, would that be considered a dwelling?
Madam Chair, there's a lot of different, I mean, we could go down a lot of rabbit holes. It's not that simple, unfortunately. There is a definition, but this
I'd like
is
to
not-
hear it, please.
Definitely not that we'd have to see what are you proposing and go through that, but sit here and go through those iterations right now, when there's not even a dwelling there on the site. But we do, I'll read you the definition of a dwelling.
So Dana, real quick, are there 2 parcel numbers for each one of these? If they combine the parcels, would their house be considered a dwelling?
There's no, no, they're across the street. So, definition of a dwelling. One second.
I have one more question after this, and it's gonna be easy.
Yeah, I've got a couple myself.
Okay.
I have more. Actually, I think I just get to add.
Okay,
so
so,
that's to make life easier. That's it, no more.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, so the definition of dwelling, a one-family dwelling shall mean a building containing only a single dwelling unit. So then that leaves it up to me to interpret the rest, but yeah, it's a full housekeeping facility.
And-
Bedroom, kitchen, bath,
Okay.
typically, but like I said.
And so the reason that the home-based occupation, was not considered for this is because there's not a dwelling on the property. But if discussion were to be had about what constitutes a dwelling, then perhaps we wouldn't be looking at a recreational CUP. We might be looking at a different process. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. The last question that I have, I'm not opening a can of worms, but I apologize. The last question I have is hopefully very, very simple. Number 11, when it says, if requested, coordinate with City Public Works Department to provide dedication of the Sanders Drive right of way. I'm nervous about the phrase, if requested. Let's say that the city requests it, but the private property owner does not want that. How can that be phrased such that it's an agreement? It's not just the city can request it and therefore.
It does sound kind of
happens.
strong army.
Yeah.
And if I could, Mr. Haas, would you like to dedicate the right of way?
And I would like to say that decisions shouldn't be made in the heat of the moment, right? Like, we definitely are not trying to ask you to make a decision about that today. In fact, we're trying to make sure that that homeowners and governments come to agreements about things in a proper and timed format. And that's why I want to revisit the language here that says if requested. I definitely want to make sure that that's cleaned up to say it's more along the lines of if the property owner and the city agree, then it could be dedicated as a right of way. And I don't even know if that needs to be stated in here because that can be done regardless of whether or not we're zoning this as recreation, right? That would be a completely separate process, right?
Yep. Correct.
So I think I would suggest to my fellow commissioners that 11 just come right out.
Okay.
That's it for me. I stirred the pot enough, so.
Okay, well, and you beat me to it on 11 because I thought the same thing, that it doesn't feel right. My question is, and it may have already been answered, is about the lighting. So does your lighting meet what this says? Your solar lighting?
It doesn't even shine outside the
No,
field.
like it says shielded if over 75 watts, so is it over 75 watts? Okay, so does that need to be in there either?
Madam Chair and Commissioners, typically when you're discussing uses and mitigating activities in residential neighborhoods, lighting is a very common issue. And so we have a lighting code that restricts light trespass and is specific to these things, and that code specifically implements that language.
All right.
So we just want to make sure if people start complaining, it's clear that lights. But just looking at the photos, there's no trespass, and I think it's buried where something can't, another property probably won't be able to see it, but you don't know who's going to have that property in 5 years, like you mentioned, and chooses to bring out a different lighting scenario.
Could we request it to not be solar powered only? Because like they said, in the future, we'll probably have a house down there, things like that. So solar might not be a thing in 6 months if we decide to run power to the property and we have a panel down there, and I'd hate to restrict you. That's I think the point of this. Right?
I was just taking what I was given.
Okay. I'd say
in terms of the
that.
type of lighting.
Are we striking solar powered?
I'd strike the solar portion. I think the lighting portion's appropriate for commercial use. We had something similar to this a year ago in another residential neighborhood. I think almost the same language, minus the solar powered. That just seems really limiting to me.
Justin, did you have any others? Because I know Tracy has some.
I do. You want to go first? I can
No, go ahead.
All right.
Because you brought up 11 and then with the lighting, because I was a little uncomfortable with both those, but I'm good. Strike the solar part, yes? Dana? We're striking the
So we'll
solar part?
strike solar powered lights. So restricted to fully shielded over 75 watts. If over 75, shall be restricted to fully shielded if over 75 watts. Yep.
Okay, so I have, looking at the outline pieces, just as we're talking more, and I'm just looking through every last little piece. I think we missed something that says we accept the fence as it sits today.
Yeah, we need to add the fence, and then we need to add that thing about the porta potty that you said.
Yep.
And can we be clear about what we mean by adding the fence, Justin?
Yeah, so what we would want to outline with that fence is that we are approving, this is where it gets really challenging because I don't like to just blanket approve things that have been rather challenging in the past 2 years with fence approvals when it comes to chain link. It's been a really sore spot.
No, we have an image. What's your goal? Because there's an image attached to the exhibit.
So yeah, looking at the image, I think potentially what we'd be looking at is more so we'd consider this livestock fencing. I think that's what county code has for something like this, where it's pipe rail fencing, and we typically call that like a hog wire mesh.
Okay.
So that may be considered more on the agricultural side of it. So we'd normally, I think, consider that more of a livestock fence.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Acevedo, are you trying to define exactly
Trying to define what that is, because what I want to make sure we're not doing, because we have had many other applicants come to us in my time frame on the commission to request to have some sort of chain link, wire fencing, et cetera, et cetera. We have been quite strict or very restrictive as to what that might be. This is a really unique site because we're way down out of the way. It's a very special use, and I think having a determining factor that does relate it back to livestock is actually fairly common in other entities across the state. For those that don't know, I'm a practicing landscape architect, and I work all over the state. That's why I'm only here on the weekends for the most part. I'm always driving around. But I see this quite frequently in a lot of other places. I think it just kind of makes sense that this might be something that we look at adding. I mean, we're talking, I think, everywhere from, I think we worked on a project in Jerome that had something similar to this a number of years ago, to like, God, I hate to say the word, but like Scottsdale has a livestock fence. You've got Florence has something, I believe, about livestock fencing. So just looking at, I think it's an appropriate thing possibly for us to set maybe as a precedence for this particular use.
It was referred to as stock fencing.
Yep, so livestock fencing is, yeah,
That's
yep,
what they refer to.
exactly. So livestock fencing typically includes things like hog wire mesh, that includes pipe rail fencing for horses, any kind of a stock panel. I think this may fall in line with, but I think we might want to set some parameters as to why it's there.
Why can't we just put that for the use that it's currently being done for, that's being approved, that fencing is allowed to stay on the property as is unless it changes for whatever purpose comes next, if any?
And I do agree. It's pretty clear. Obviously, this item is agendized for a fence, special fence. And then we've got the image and an explanation. It's wire type fencing, which is how our code defines it. So I feel comfortable allowing that to exist with that language.
Okay.
And not, so if there's a change, we'll take a look at that change. Is that fair?
Well, it allows for a change if we have to, for a later use of the property.
Again, chair, audience, applicants, I'm sorry, we're getting so in the weeds here. We're gonna talk about this probably a few more minutes. But again, just wanna make sure we've got every last thing in here. Special events. So one of the things back on like page 3 of notes was, actually might have been first page, who knows, where was it? Doesn't matter. We were chatting about the fact that our 4-H in Gila County actually hosted the first dog event for 4-H since COVID. So that's actually what I'm asking. Is it was there?
Train the dogs to compete at the 4-H events, like the dog shows.
And that kind of got my brain going a little bit, and the fact that you could potentially have a special event here someday. And just for those online, because I know we didn't get up and speak, the event did not happen on site, so it happened at a location. But I think what I'd like to possibly make sure and discuss with the other commissioners about and with Dana and staff, if it would be appropriate, or if there's already something in city codes about just applying for a special event permit, would this qualify within that kind of realm, so we didn't need to have anything here on site?
And which number was that again?
So it's not in there, so this is just me.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Just discussing.
No, I considered that. I did anticipate what when there was an event or a future user, hey, I want to have a big event, watch this dog races or whatever it is. Obviously, that's gonna have a significant impact. They could come and we're in the neighborhood again, so that would be a hard one, I think, to get a special event permit for. But if there's an advertisement process, public hearing type of thing, and hey, this is what they're requesting, then maybe.
Okay, so it doesn't cause any restriction. I just want to make sure.
Agree, looking way down that road.
Yeah, so I think I would rather avoid going down that road because there is a city process. I think could handle that pretty easily, and we have to do that for everything from like if we have an event on Main Street to if we host an event down close down to the rail. If we anything anywhere has to have a special event permit. So I just want to make sure we weren't restricting the property in any weird way that we shouldn't be to restrict you further. Okay, I think that's all of them finally.
I think item 12 covers that pretty well.
Yeah.
All right, it's Tracy's turn.
Yeah, I'm good.
Could we summarize what we're making changes to? May I take us through it, if that's all right with you? I don't believe there's any changes to condition number 1. I don't believe there's any changes to condition number 2. And I think 3 is where we landed. I'm really struggling with that because it is a business. I would like to strike that. I get that that's a precedent though. And so I want to hear from the other commissioners on how we want to handle that. If we don't strike 3, she cannot run that nonprofit on that site. Does that make sense? Unless y'all can find a loophole that I'm just not seeing and I'm open to it.
Again, it's a recreational use. They've agreed that it's a recreational use with no stock and trade and not a commercial activity on the site. Again, you need, I think, a much longer discussion and ultimately council's review of any language that's going to make such a significant change to a R16 single-family zoning district. That's substantial.
Does it clarify at all? I have one question because I feel like I wrote this down like 3 different ways. So most of this is being run through 4-H. It's all a 4-H thing. But then Do you also have a business that operates on site doing other training exercises, it sounds like, or is that?
Volunteer work.
Volunteer?
Offer classes for puppies.
Classes for puppies, okay.
Yeah.
And is that under a business license or?
I can do it under my business license, but I have people that volunteer.
So it's just volunteer 100%, we can qualify this as
If
4-H.
people wanted to donate, then it gets donated, so.
Okay.
Otherwise.
So at that point, it does put it into a weird business operations standpoint, because 4-H is technically run by the University of Arizona, which is therefore a state entity, which is therefore not technically a business within the state, even though 4-H is across the country. There are ones that operate as their own nonprofits.
But they're not.
But this one does not.
4-H
so-
isn't running this.
Yeah.
Let's be clear. This is, the Haas's.
Yeah.
Volunteering to train dogs.
Yep.
Can we change it to say commercial and business use is prohibited on the site except those specifically permitted as a home occupation or as this nonprofit? Like, why can't we put that
This
name
is
in there
the
since
language
this
out
is-
of the code.
Understood, but since this is a conditional use permit for this specific property, for this purpose, why can't we put the name of that purpose in here? Does that set an unfair precedent for the entire code?
It does.
How
Who,
so?
yeah, right. Anybody requesting a use permit on a single family property could say it's a business. And you, well, how are you gonna deny it?
So, what we can do is skip 3 and come back to it if you want.
I think you guys are beating it to death.
Yeah, I think we're fine.
Just keep
Yeah,
it
I
in?
think you're beating it to
Okay,
death.
all right,
Yep.
keep it in. Did we decide that 4 goes?
I
I
would keep
think
this,
we
yeah.
need to make the provision for that so that we don't have to go through this again.
Again, we're bending a,
Okay, so 3 and 4 stay, even though we know, okay, 5, where did we land on 5? It stays, even though we know that the grading was allowed before?
Yep, because it states
Okay.
for any future.
Perfect, 6 stays. What did we land on with 7?
Already done.
Done, so it's perfect.
So then does it stay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
Great.
already done. Why would
And
you
then
pull
8
it?
is fine, 9,
we
we're
strike.
removing
Move solar
solar
powered.
powered.
Solar power comes on.
10 is fine, 11 comes out, 12 is fine, and then we're adding the 2 additional conditions about the fence and the porta potty, correct?
Yes, so I think the language we would probably use for that is along the lines of a portable toilet facility not exceeding, is there any chance you'd ever have more than like 1 or 2 porta johns out there, or are we always gonna have 1?
One, and
Okay.
it's rarely used.
That's perfect, that's what I want to hear. I just want to make sure if you want us to put,
It's only for
we might have
kids,
2, then we'll
so
put
I'm
2.
sure the neighbors don't wanna see them pee out in public.
I think we would all rather avoid that. So we could say a single-use portable it should really just say toilet facility, I think. Because
Or
restroom
the-
facility brings other things.
I think your issue is that it's in the setback, so porta potty to be located outside of setback.
Outside setback, and I want it to be able to be on site for the full 2 years of our conditional use permit.
It's 10 years.
10 years? Oh, it's 10, sorry, my bad. Wrote
That's
down
10
2
years.
here, sorry.
That is
10 years.
that's
I'm
it.
like, 2, this feels like a nightmare, let's not.
Porta potty be located outside of setback.
Setback and may extend past the,
If you leave it at that, it's part of the, until the use is done.
okay, perfect, love that. And then fence, this is the tricky one, where we just gotta make sure we craft some words on it. Do you have any recommendations?
Existing wire, I think the language personally is fine and the image attached to the exhibit. But if you want to have something, chain link or wire type fencing as included in the staff exhibit A to be allowed for the use of, for securing the paddock.
I think that works, yeah. Paddock, livestock paddock. Let's add livestock in there, just for fun.
Okay. Well, we don't want to
All
say.
right, okay.
We don't,
All right.
cows aren't allowed
Frogs.
in this district.
Yeah.
So anyway, wire type.
Yep, okay.
Okay. Now, Shelley, for the record, if one of us decides to make this motion, do we have to repeat all of this, or is this good enough?
No, you can
Dana's taking
refer
notes,
to
right?
stipulations
As-
as amended.
Excellent, okay, stipulations as amended, thank you.
Sure, may I ask our folks out here one last question?
Sure.
Just want to make sure. Is there any big red flags on what we're talking about up here for y'all? Are there any big red flags on what we're talking about up here at the moment? Okay, that's what I wanted to hear. I wanted to make sure this is going off on happy footing at this point.
All right, do we have any further discussion? Do I have a motion?
I motion to approve case number UP-25-01 conditional use permit to allow outdoor recreation use for canine training and a special purpose wire fence with the following conditions.
Sorry, get the wire fence in it.
With the new stipulations as amended.
A second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay? Motion passes. All right, do we have any future business? Oh, first off, I know we're getting ready to run out. Thank you so much. This was
Thank you so much
a
for
really
being
good
here.
meeting.
Thank you all. I'm sorry.
This whole way, all the way.
Let's just wrap this up real quick. Is that okay?
Well, Charlie wants to-
Yeah, Dennis has to respond to future agendas.
Yeah, I'm gonna go.
Dinner.
This meeting has not come to end. Can you give us 2 minutes?
Sonia, I'm going over to your house.
Everybody can visit. Just 2 minutes, okay?
Shelley, do we have any further business?
Do we have any for what? No.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion.
All those in
All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Done. Thank you.
Thank you for speaking.
Yeah, we get to be on your side, and we get to try to fight as much as possible.
Had to get there.
Yeah. It's an amazing project. I love it. It's amazing.
Nice to meet you.
I've got 9 of them in Atlanta. Just a couple.
I had no idea there were.
Well, there's your surprise.